right. What's up, peeps? It's the kid L.R.Player here. I'm back with another podcast video. Now, first and foremost, I just want to apologize for the video quality on my end of this interview. It came out poorly. The internet signal connection is just poorly in this area. But my guest video quality is good and perfect. And speaking of my guest, this is a special young woman. She is a student of the sport. She break everything down to the smallest details to get the most perfectionist out of her workout, if that makes it the most perfectionist. Anyway, um, sit back, get your popcorn, your fruit, your healthy snack, your smoothies, and enjoy this episode as I introduce my guest, our guest, the community guest, Andrea Jumps. Peace. Introducing Miss Andrea Jumps.
Hello.
How you
You
feeling, Miss
called me
Andrea?
you called me a young lady. I'm I'm honored. I'm
Yes,
good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Oh, Miss Andrea's Jump. So, when I first seen you, or when you first popped on the scene, you displayed like a great deal of athleticism from the jump, doing double unders, double under crossovers. You got a little supplier metric training in your
Well,
what
uh,
what is that
uh,
about?
it's funny because yeah, when I first picked up a jump rope, that's like almost the first thing I went straight to was just double unders, straight up double unders, and that's all I wanted to do. I am a jumper by like I grew up playing volleyball, so volleyball is my sport. Indoor volleyball and beach volleyball. I played for years since I guess. I mean, I started indoor volleyball in elementary school, and then I played on the provincial team for beach volleyball in high school. And up until my early 20s, I was on teams, and now I just play recreationally for fun. But yeah, so jumping has always been in my repertoire, just not over a rope.
So would you say the difficulty jumping in the sand, beach volleyball, and jumping rope on the sand is equivalent, or like
Ooh,
what is the
different,
traction?
different.
What is the traction? Because you have to like get some good I don't know, I want to say stability or some kind of traction to leap as high as you do for volleyball.
Yeah, it's different, right? With volleyball, it's not as plyometric where you're jumping and landing constantly as you are with the jump rope, right? With volleyball, you kind of load up to
Hmm.
spring and then attack or block or whatever you're doing. But yeah, no, jump rope is great training for volleyball, though. That was the first time I was really introduced to jump rope was in high school. Our coach asked us to use the jump rope for conditioning over the summer. So we did, it's really all I did was single unders, some unilateral stuff. So like jumping off one leg and the other leg. And I learned a cross and then I learned a double under, but my form was just awful. Now that I know what I know now, but I was able to clear the rope. So that's where I started. That was sort of my baseline a long time ago.
um, and so when you picked up the rope, you was outside. I think you were with your kids. You had a little small break,
I've got two,
and
yeah.
jumping in public. How did you feel? Was it the same as jumping, playing volleyball outside in the beach on the beach?
No, because I mean, outside on a beach, you're there for it's an obvious reason that you're there. You're there in competition or with others. When I'm jumping by myself outside, it feels a little bit different. It definitely garners some looks and a little bit of attention, wondering what I'm doing, especially when it's more complicated things. But it always like sparks conversation, which is kind of one of the things I love most about jumping outside is that people come by, will stop and ask me questions, and then I can introduce it to them. So
You mean how Steph came up to you and introduced herself?
exactly, that's a funny story. I was at Kits Beach. I actually had the day off that day from work, and I just decided to go down and hang out at the beach. And I played some tennis. I think I might have played some volleyball that day, but took out the rope and was jumping on the basketball courts, and then this woman comes up to me. She's like, "Are you Andrea?" And I'd never met her before. I think we might have connected on Instagram before that briefly, and she knew exactly who it was, and it was just so weird. But the rest is history now. So it was the start of a nice friendship. So
Well, on top of that, it started a nice movement in Vancouver, which
yeah,
you are representing with this hoodie you got on.
jump rope
Woo
Vancouver.
woo.
Yeah.
Tell me the experience and like what y'all went through when developing that movement.
Yeah, it happened completely organically, and it's still growing organically. I started my account I picked up a jump rope again since high school in December of 2020, and then I started my account, my Andrea Jumps account, in I think January or February, like shortly after. And from there, pretty quickly after, I found Jacqueline, so Jumpin' Jacks,
Right.
and she had hashtag Jump Rope Vancouver in there, and I was like, oh, there's another person in Vancouver that does this, amazing. And then she had a group set up on meetup.com called Jump Rope Vancouver. So she was the one who initiated that. And she had just a couple of her people that she knew and people she invited to join the group. And they were doing online stuff at the time because it was during COVID.
Right.
So they had never actually met in person, I don't think, at that point. So yeah, that's kind of how it started with her. And then slowly I found Steph and then other Vancouver jumpers, and like MJ was one of the originals,
Right.
Tanya. Yeah. And then so we started so Jacqueline invited me to the meetup.com group. So I signed up for that. And then I decided to start an Instagram chat group just because everybody I was finding was on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So I started this group chat and we slowly started adding people and adding people. Now it's like 35. I think there's a max on the chat,
I
but
think
there's
it's
about
like
35
32 or
people,
something like that.
something like that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think 32 might be our max. So yeah, so we organized our very first meetup in August of 2021, I guess. And it was just the four of us. MG was supposed to come to that, but he couldn't make it. So it was myself, Jax, Steph, and Tanya. And we met up at Olympic Village and jumped our little hearts out. And it was so much fun. And that was the start of it. And we've done something not I think we had one or two more that year, and then since the spring the following year it's almost been monthly since then,
Yes.
which is
Oh yeah.
pretty
I think I
crazy.
had once that was like twice a month or twice in 1 month,
We
I
did we
believe.
had we had twice in 1 month over the summer, I think. Yeah, so yeah, and then with that, like we were really fortunate because meetup.com has fees you need to pay. I don't know if anybody's on that, but so to run that platform, which is so great because it's a great search. It works well on Google. If people Google jump rope Vancouver or anything jump rope related in Vancouver, meetup.com pops up. So they find us really easily. But we have fees to pay, and which is unfortunate because we don't charge for our meetups. They're free.
Right.
So we actually had the jump rope coach, Chris, step in and offer to help sponsor us, which was like a
I
huge
do
deal
remember
for
that.
us.
I do
So
remember that.
so he's donated ropes for us to use for our meetups because we have so many new people who come, which is awesome. But not everybody has their own rope. And we each personally don't have a whole lot of ropes to share. I've got a handful, but not too many. So
Right.
he donated some ropes for us to share with others to use when they come. And so he helps us with that sort of stuff, which is great. We're very grateful.
I had that in mind to include that in your intro, but as soon as I started hitting the record, it
Oh,
just totally blanked out.
it's all good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So,
after a while, you kind of like went back to the basics, and
mm,
you started looking at more the more professional coaches, and you mainly just like became like a real student of the sport, going back to the swing, side swings, the
yeah,
cross,
that
and you were
was
sharing a lot of important information, like down to the smallest detail. So, tell us about that mentality you had at that point where you was like, you know what, I'm chill out on the double unders. Let me get back to the ground basic, ground zero.
So yeah, it's true. I went guns a-blazing. I didn't know any of these tricks existed until I saw somebody do a swing to cross, and I was like, "What the heck is that?" That's what like got me into like wanting to learn freestyle. Because my initial ropes that I bought were cross ropes, and it was just because I didn't know what else to buy. It's kind of what I saw on the market,
Right.
but I don't use them anymore. It doesn't really apply to what I'm doing. But the I then found a beaded rope because I saw these mic releases and all these cool tricks. So my point is that I got so drawn into all the things that you can do with the jump rope because I had no idea. It was this whole new world for me. So I went in and I one of my strong suits is I am a quick learner when it comes to like hand-eye coordination or anything physical. So I can pick things up pretty easily and like get them done.
Mm-hmm.
And then so as soon as I figured something else, I wanted to go on to the next thing. And doing that, I learned later on that I wasn't actually doing things necessarily the most efficient way or in the correct way. And that would then hinder me for going further later on.
Right.
For example, the side swing. So, or the swing to open, particularly. So that sort of back to basics all started because I was after a triple under mic release, which for the record, I still can't do. Um, the
Right.
the conventional triple under mic release, where the first rotation is actually part of the swing. And so I think I reached out to the jump rope coach Chris, or he reached out to me or gave me some feedback on something because I was frustrated with it. And he asked me, "Can you do a triple under open, open, open?" I was like, "What?" Anyway, so the long story short is that like mentality of like going back to the basics of jumping with landing on the balls of your feet and springing back up. And that got into the topic of like side swings and how when I was jumping with my side swings or my sort of crossed swing, I was still on the ground as the rope passed up. So I wasn't actually
Right, because you did
bounding.
a side by side
I
at one
did,
point. Yeah, I
yeah.
do remember that.
So the analysis was very much like the comment that he used was that I was striking up instead of striking down, which I was like, what does that even mean? But but now that I know what I know, so that was the comment that it was just like, I have to understand what you're talking about because it now I realize that it affects everything. And so it affects how I do all my triples now. It affects how I do all my multiples now. And just the theory of like, it's almost like this pogo stick where like you you strike down with your hands to push yourself back up and vice versa. And I didn't clue into that would actually give you energy to pop up a little bit higher. So
And like be more efficient and
be more
and
efficient.
be
So, and
more like
yeah,
parallel up and down with your jumping.
yeah. And also hand positions. Like I'm pretty picky now about like when I see myself and like, oh, my hands are just a little too far apart or not quite close enough because especially when you're doing triples, because that's ultimately like I love multiples. Obviously, I started with multiples, and everything I learn, I want to turn it into a multiple. So that's kind of where I'm at. But that doesn't become possible unless everything from the single unders are super efficient. It doesn't become possible easily. And I like ultimately my goal is to make things look easy, which they aren't necessarily. But for me, I want to be the most efficient and smooth as I can be, I guess. So that really like understanding that I'm not going to be able to learn that while I'm doing a triple under was like, okay, back to the basics.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was super cool of you to share because I actually like learned something when you was doing it as far as like the terms go because um like I can understand it by looking at it, but when you put it into terms, I was like,
Right.
oh, okay, now they do make sense. So now when I'm hearing it without looking it, I can visually
Yeah,
like mentally project it in my mind and like, okay,
for
now it
sure.
makes sense. So
Yeah, there's all
now,
different ways.
so now you went from that and then you applied it to leg crosses.
So again, I never ever wanted to learn how to do leg cross.
I
It
remember
was not
that.
it was not on my list of things to want to learn. It's so funny that I think about it now because I love them now. they're challenging. Like they require strength and stability and balance, obviously, if you're up on one leg.
Right.
But there's just so many different variations and ways to do them. So yeah, and they're tricky because one hand is always restricted, or two can be with the elephant. Like one hand is always restricted, so it's a little more challenging to get the rope past you in the right way. So yeah, I never wanted to learn them, and then I fell in love with them.
So before I get to the next question about leg crosses, how is your elephant? Because recently, I think it was, I want to say it was you. I did a elephant. You were like,
Yeah.
I ain't doing the elephant because I can't see it in the combo. And I think you probably like a week or so later you did it. I believe I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah, I remember that. My elephants, it's funny that you say that because I was just working on them yesterday. And the one side, I get no problem every time. The other
Hmm.
side, I don't know what it is. I just trip up. I can get into an elephant much easier from a swing. So if I go from a toed swing, so if one hand is already under my leg and then I swing into the elephant, that's
Hmm.
a lot easier to do. And I tend to do that more if I had it in a combo. But going straight from the open to the elephant on one side for me, I don't know what it is. I
Well,
have to
see,
break it down a little more.
that's where I'm backwards. Like I can go
Oh,
straight
interesting.
into it and get out of it, but as far as like swinging into it, like I'm always jamming up.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So, the leg crosses. One thing that I remember you was doing, and I actually kind of picked this up from you. As far as like when we're doing leg crosses, there's a lot of hip flexion and mobility involved.
yeah.
So I think you had I don't know if you posted or you wrote about it in your stories or something about you got with your trainer and he was introducing you to like some hip mobility or hip
Hip flexor
flexibility.
strengthening. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, can you tell us how important somebody
Yeah,
can
that's
implement that? Because I literally started doing it as soon as you, because it just made a lot of sense to me when
yeah.
you posted.
It's funny, like, so I work, or I should say, I'll start. My husband owns a gym in Vancouver called Elite Performance, and I train there. And I have a client there that I train also, but I see a personal trainer out of there, and I see him. His name is Jared, and he's really helped me quite a bit in terms of programming exercises for me to help, particularly with jump rope, because he knows that's sort of the activity that I'm doing mostly. But yeah, hip flexor strength is, I mean, most people are weak in their hip flexors, even if you're tight, which kind of sounds funny and counterintuitive. But, and a lot of people don't strengthen or try or add exercises into strengthen. So that's something that we've been implementing just in different ways, using, a band or kettlebells or a pulley in certain ways, just really lifting the leg into that position. Because if you are doing that with the jump rope where you have to lift your leg up, especially if you're getting into consecutives where you need to help, like, hold it up for a
Right.
little bit of time, right? But I think in general, like my well, our philosophy, I guess, around training is to prevent injury ultimately, like to increase performance for sure. But I'm not competing. I don't need to jump an extra 3 inches off the ground to prove anything. I would love to, but it's not really a goal that I'm like after. But
Right.
really, it's to condition my body so that I can jump whenever I want, like, and do whatever I want without getting hurt or
S-
getting injured, right? So yeah, hip flexor strength, also tibialis anterior, like the front of the shin, where a lot of people feel shin splints. I mean,
Right.
tibialis is probably one of the least worked um, muscles in terms of jumping. Like nobody really pays attention to it. Everybody focuses on calves. I mean, you already get a lot of jumping from you get a lot of work from the calves already in jumping, but by countering, strengthening the tibialis by doing like toe raises and that sort of thing can really
Hmm.
help balance things out. So those are some
So
things I focus on.
you already, that was my next question. What exercise, or maybe like two or three, would you say that you would suggest, but not professionally, like tell people
Yeah,
like, yeah, what would you say that most a lot of us jumpers should work on as far as like warm ups, exercise to strengthen the hip flexor, Typically, I just
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
butchering all the names. Sorry.
no, no, it's all good. And to be honest, there's like with strength training in particular, there's no, I feel like a general program is always better than just doing specific exercises. So like you can focus on all like the smaller muscles to help, but at the same time it's more beneficial to have it compounded with some of the bigger exercises too. Like I do a lot of split squats, so sort of single leg squats. But
Pistol
yeah, like
squats.
because I don't do them personally. I mean, it
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
the benefit isn't really there for me, but I
Right.
would much rather work on progressive overload over time to get stronger and more conditioned, I guess. But yeah, so split squats. Like I said, the tibialis anterior raises are really helpful to um, sort of help avoid the shin splints if possible. Although shin splints just come from overuse in general, right? Like
Right.
that's
Just
it's more of a preventative
overtraining
thing
and
than yeah. Um, yeah, those would be yeah, hip flexor strengthening. So lying down on a supine on the ground, and then just bringing attaching like a band or a pulley to the toe or the foot, and just pulling the knee up to the hip or to the chest, I guess, and
right.
slowly bringing it back down. Um, yeah, those would be my suggestions. There's so much more, and there's obviously like mobility and stretching and so many things that I can't. I couldn't go over all in one
The
go.
list can go on and
It
on.
does. Yeah. But I mean, I think the biggest thing is just picking something and being consistent with it, because doing it once isn't going to get you anything, right? And I think
Right.
that's the biggest thing I've learned for me, because I'm a mom. I just turned 40 this year. I have two small kids and I'm busy, busy, busy. And I used to train a lot as an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And where I was in the gym all the time, but not really focused in the right ways. And now that I have no time on my hands, I have 2 days that I'm dedicated to that are my time to go to the gym for 1 hour. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been able to stay consistent with that over the last almost 10 years, I guess. So, and that I think in itself, I mean, it takes time. It's not something that can just happen overnight. So just kind
Right.
of staying with it just takes time. But
So tell us how you balance being a mom, being an instructor, being
not
a
very
jump rope
well.
athlete.
I don't jump rope as much as I used to. There was like last year or the year before is when I was like all out and just totally hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't work. Like I couldn't balance it. It was, to be honest, it was like a distraction almost from like everything else I had to do. And I just like enjoyed it so much that that's where I put my effort. But things, it pays the price. So
Right.
it's really hard to balance. So my balance now is, I don't even know. I work full time and I take care of my kids. I've got them in the mornings, get them out of school and daycare, and jump rope when I can, 5-10 minutes here and there. That's what I'm doing. I'm not spending hours with my jump rope,
But you still
but
making it work though. You still
I'm
making the
still
count
making it
though.
work, and I'm focusing on myself on the drills. Like everything adds up, right? And that's, to me,
Right.
that's how I stay consistent, is by just breaking it down into little pieces and just chugging along. So
That's amazing work. I can learn from that, but I don't have kids, so
it
it's just
it
like I'm just all over the place.
it's, you know what, and it depends. Like you don't know it until you're in it, right? Like it's
Right.
easy for people to give advice in a different situation, but until you're in it, then you just basically adapt and you figure it out what works for you at the time. And that's just all it is. I mean, I used to very much be, that's the one thing that's changed big time, is I was all or nothing. So if I was going to the gym, and like back in the day, if I was going to the gym and I was going to be late and I was going to miss half my workout for whatever, I would just
Mm-hmm.
say, screw it. I'm not going to
Like,
go. Like, there's no point. Right. Whereas
right.
now it's like, even if I only have 10 minutes, I'm going, because that's all I'm going to get. So it's just such a different mindset. And to be honest, that feels healthier to me now.
Right.
Um, yeah.
I mean, you still get the reward of like I still got this done
Yeah,
instead of just like
absolutely.
I could have did something with that 10 minutes, but I
Yeah.
overshot it, I overthinked it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of being, for me, it's just being easier on myself, right? Like not beating myself about not being able
R-
to do the whole thing or making it work, and just being like, yeah, you got something. That's good.
Right.
Better than nothing. So,
Now back to our regular scheduled program.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, and yeah.
Any more couples duet in the future on your
Yeah.
content?
He's my husband's working on a couple things. I'm trying to get him to come to our workshop. So we're hosting Jump Rope Vancouver is collaborating with the Jump Rope coach Chris in May. He's coming here
Right.
in May to host a big workshop, which is super exciting. I asked him if he wanted to come to it, but I don't think he can make it. Trying to get
Uh,
his skills up, but he's working on stuff. Yeah, we bring our ropes together to the gym if we
big
have
ups to
time.
your
And
husband getting involved in your
I
content.
know, yeah. You know, the funny thing is he likes to have notice. Like he would prefer if I said, "Hey, can you send me that combo in a week, like a week in advance, so I can work on it, and then we can do it." That doesn't ever happen because we never plan that far in advance. So we're on the rooftop and we're like, "Kate, can you do this? Hey,
I
let's put this
mean, does he
together," and
not
he
know
does
that?
it. He
Does he
does
not
it
know
though.
that it's planned to change by next week?
Yeah,
The
exactly.
combo plan to change by next week?
Exactly. No, no, it's pretty impressive. Like he's never done any jump rope before, and he's picking it up pretty good. So
Well,
I'm proud
tell
of him.
him that is doing pretty well with you, keeping up with you. So
Yeah, I will.
hope
Yeah,
that's encouraged him
so
to do more. But
absolutely.
so how can I get my hands on a jump rope Vancouver hoodie?
Oh, you'll have to talk to Steph. Actually, ooh, yeah, talk to Steph. She's kind of the one in charge. We don't really have a we don't have like a formal organization where this is like
Yeah,
these are being pumped out constantly, but we do put in orders every now and then, and it's very much like ordering a t-shirt from a high school volleyball team or something. So get in touch with
Steph.
Steph.
Steph, if
Yeah.
you hearing this, I need a sweater, extra large.
Yeah, absolutely. We She just put in an order, I think, where we're gonna outfit most of our group who ordered them. So we'll look pretty sharp around town, which is fun.
That is dope that y'all got a massive movement like that.
It's,
I,
you know what? It's really awesome, and I have to step back and think about it sometimes because it is. We've had guests come from, I mean, Vancouver is very much a travel place, so like we had Maria come from Denmark, we had a couple from Germany come and visit, we had Alicia from Seattle come up.
right.
Um we had, who else do we have? I think Mona's coming from Ontario next for a meetup on April 1st. I haven't met her
Oh,
yet, so that's
yeah,
exciting.
yeah. I think I
Yeah.
seen that in y'all live that day. Y'all made that
Yeah.
announcement.
So yeah, it's awesome. It's like slowly growing, and we're getting so many new people and just people interested in trying. And because we set up our meetup sort of in a public spot, we have a lot of people that just pass by and are like, "What's going on?"
I
So
swear I'll be
yeah,
seeing like a week worth of content just as
yeah,
soon
oh
as
yeah.
y'all meetup is over. Well, let's see what Vancouver got going on.
And you know what? I'm so terrible. I spend all my time at the meetups just talking to people. I rarely take out my phone to video, which is kind of funny because I video everything else that I do at the jump rope. But at the
Oh
meetups,
well,
it's
they made
just
it
like
up
the
for me.
time. Yeah, yeah. So, but everybody else does. I feel like together, it all kind of comes together.
Oh
Everybody
yeah,
can have
you
fun.
pop
So,
up on everybody else content,
yeah,
so
it's
that
fine.
should make up for it.
Yeah, yeah.
You got anything for me?
Do you have anybody to jump with out there?
Unfortunately, I don't.
You don't. You
Nope.
got to come up to Vancouver one day.
Y'all
Make a
is
trip.
so far
I know.
um northeast from me, I think. Are y'all like on
No, we're
the
on the
very
west. We're on the very west, northwest.
west?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Hmm.
Y'all like at the very end of not Vancouver, of
Very tip of
Canada, right?
Washington, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just across the border from Washington.
I think
But
I seen tickets, flight tickets there. It was kind of a little outrageous for me one day.
yeah.
I just randomly looked it up like,
Just, oh, so you have the little bug. You are interested.
oh yeah. I mean, it get lonely jumping here by myself. I
I
mean,
know.
people see me and they be like, "Oh, I wish I can do that," but you can. But I guess it's like intimidating because they see me do all this
You,
craziness that I do.
yeah. I was so surprised by you because when I first found you, you were very much, you were like a double unders, you were doing double under turns, like real fast crosses. And then all of a sudden, I see you throwing out these leg crosses and these crazy combos with mix. And I was like, oh, so versatile. I think you did a caboose. You did some ground crosses. I was like, what the heck? I had no idea you were so versatile. It's awesome. But I was actually going to wonder, are there like goals that you're working towards? Uh,
Um, Actually, no. It's just one of those things that I pick up a rope and I use it for what it's intended. And what the best thing about it, like kind of being versatile, is like it helped me from hitting a plateau. I mean, there's been like days that like I won't jump for a week because I'm like
mhm.
creatively tired and
Yeah,
try to think of things, but just being able to pick up a rope, a speed rope, beater rope, heavy rope, and use it for it purpose, it kind of keep me from hitting the plateau. So
yeah,
it's kind of hard to say what I'm working on next because
for sure.
I really don't know sometimes what I'm working on next. I just
Yeah. So
pack a
sometimes
rope,
you don't
go
have to,
outside.
right? Exactly. And I see you're in the gym quite a bit too. Is that something you've always done?
Yeah, yeah. Just haven't recorded that much.
Yeah.
So now I try to record a little bit as far as like strength training goes because I'm trying to gain a little mass.
Hmm.
And so I had like toned down the jump roping a bit,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
when I do go, sometime I carry the heavy rope with me, so I
Right.
won't get caught up trying to make combos. Just
Yeah,
get
for
like a
sure.
quick finisher in, like some
Yeah.
quick heavy doubles and
Yeah.
fast
Just
crossovers, and I'm out of there.
for sure. I know it can be challenging. I know I find that when I do, there's like one morning where I have time that I could lift weights or jump rope or both. And I'm not a fan of doing I'd rather do one or the other and not both. It's hard for me because I'd like to focus on something rather than split it up. But sometimes with the
Yeah,
circumstances are,
yeah. Sometimes I set a timer for like maybe like an hour and an hour 15 minutes, and like I on my phone, and then I just go from there. But I never jump rope first. I just
yeah,
like
yeah,
warm
yeah,
up, strength
totally.
training, and then
Yeah,
if it buzzer go off in between the double under, then it's a wrap. It's time for me to
yeah,
go.
yeah,
So
yeah. I feel like the strength training has to take priority if that's on the protocol for the day.
yeah,
So
yeah. So what you got plans for the future for Andrea's jumps? For
I have
Andrea
no
jumps.
plans. I have no idea. No plans other than just plugging away. I mean, I started this account just to sort of track my progress and document all that. And I don't know. I have no idea.
Any summer volleyball team?
I don't plan that far ahead. Most people that play here that are competitive are playing all year round. We have an indoor facility with sand, and they've got their partners lined up and everything. I don't do any of that anymore. So if
Do you
somebody
miss
asks
it?
me to play, I do miss it. I do, but this is where it's hard for me to play if I'm not training because I played so competitively and had the skills and was able to execute. And now, if I just go back and play for fun, it's fun, but
You
I don't
be
have the
so
skills anymore and I don't execute the way I used to. So it's frustrating. So I have to really change my mindset if I do end up back on the court. Um,
competitive with yourself.
I, it's the way I am. I know. And so we'll see. If somebody asks me to play and I have the free weekend, then I will play. Why not? But it's just fun to see everybody again. It's a really great community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Miss Andrea, I really appreciate you doing this with me. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Thank you.
Um,
It was a pleasure to have
we're gonna have
your.
to do a part two to this. I
Sure.
know there's a lot that we didn't cover, but there's a part two coming in the horizon.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you having me. It's been fun. And it was
Yes,
nice to
ma'am.
see you in person. Well, in person on the screen, actually chatting.
So, peeps, there you have it. You got Andrea Jumps, L.R.Player here. Drop a comment down below. Let her know how boss she is, and she gonna provide you with the necessary information you need to help you develop your skills and take you to the next level. So, without further ado, Miss Andrea, it's been a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Larry. You too. Take care.
Peace.
Bye.